Hey everybody, it's Mike, 55 years young, reporting live, as you can see, from the Villages, Florida. Let's talk about the housing market because it's all about housing. This is the world's largest planned community. By the way, I am a real estate agent, not practicing here in Florida, but I can refer you to somebody that can help. So if you're looking for a wise, seasoned, knowledgeable real estate agent, just reach out to me. 240-205-0417 is my mobile, and I'll connect you with someone. I'll give you a referral, 240-205-0417. All right, let's get right into it. I'm 55. This is an age-restricted community. Although anybody can probably live here, check out some other recent videos that I've done on the subject. But let's talk about the housing market. Now, when Denise and I first started spending a lot of time here in the Villages a couple of years ago, I would say that, it was definitely a seller's market. I mean, I'd say things probably peaked here in early 2022. Maybe like the absolute peak, if I could look back on it, would be February or March, maybe 2022. And since then, I'd say prices and terms, and keep in mind terms, they're always very important with the sale of real estate, have been more in favor of the buyer as we've gone on. So we're here in November of 2025. So this is kind of a report for the winter of 2025, 2026, and what my outlook is and what I'm seeing out there. And I would say that, we've had a little over 3 years now of a declining market. That's how I would look at it. And I'd say especially here in the Villages in the last year, because when we were here looking around at properties and checking out the market last winter, which was 2024 or 2025, things were still, not so desperate, I would say. But what we've seen in the last year has been a lot of price reductions of resales. All right. Now, you may be aware that there's two types of real estate agents in the Villages. There are people that work with the MLS, which can be realtors, and there are people who work only with the VLS, Villages Listing Service, and are not realtors, are not allowed to be realtors, and they can't work with each other. You actually need two real estate agents in order to effectively get the whole market, because VLS agents not only are the only ones, they have a monopoly on new construction, but they also have some listings that are resales, many listings in certain cases, that you won't be able to get access to or know about unless you're driving around and see a sign up on your own, unless it's through them or working with somebody who is sending you like a search through the VLS. So what are we seeing? We're seeing discounts, heavy discounts on resales. We're also seeing that, well, at least in my opinion, new construction is not hitting the market as fast as it was. And we're also seeing more spec homes that are remaining unsold for a longer period of time. Now, I don't see any discounts necessarily on the new construction, and I don't think you'll ever hear that from the Villages. I don't think they're ever going to come out and say, hey, we got this giant sale on new construction, like you hear with some of the tract builders, like it's $30,000 in options or whatever. Like, I've never heard that. If you've heard that in the past history of the Villages, which apparently some people say goes back to the 70s, let me know. I know back then it was all mobile homes. But we are seeing a change to, even in the new construction, to more of a buyer's market. Now, like I said, I don't see any incentives, at least not that are being thrown out there publicly so you can learn about them. There may be more things, like I said, of slowing down of new production, just maybe not pricing so high, but there's still the issue of, I say, the bonds on these properties, which are higher than ever. And I'm talking about newer construction. And of course, resales, people say, in the past, people said, oh, resales are always going to be, this is just in the past, two and a half years ago, people were saying, well, resales are always going to cost you more because, when you buy it new, you can only get so many things. And then resales, they have a lower bond because someone's lived there for a longer period of time or paid it off. And that could be, like I said, up to $60,000, depending upon what property you're talking about. And there's not a lot of publication from the developers about that either. I'm just telling you, that's what I've heard and seen. But let me know what you think in the comments. All the stuff, let me know what you think down in the comments. So, getting back to what I was saying about comparing things, it was always that resales were going to be more expensive. This was just a couple of years ago. But keep in mind, there's more flexibility there with a resale. They can do whatever they want. And they're usually most of the time thrown out on the MLS so people can find them in Zillow and things like that. So, and of course, they want to move those, right? They're more desperate a lot of times. People don't A lot of times, it's a family, people have passed away and they just want to sell the place. or it's someone that's moving from within the villages, which is very common because people, it's such a vast place. A lot of times you find out things you didn't know until after you've been here for a while, and then you want to move, but you got to sell that other place. So I guess what we're seeing now is resales are not necessarily more expensive because they have all these options and lower bonds. So they're worth more. The street value will be more. Not necessarily the case because they're being discounted faster and more aggressively than the new construction. So keep that in mind. I think we've passed the point. I think, a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, resales were always more expensive overall for the same type of property because of the options in the lower bond. But I think nowadays that pendulum has swung, and what we're seeing is that they're cheaper. That's what I believe. I think we've reached that point now for sure, and maybe have reached that point for some time now. Maybe it's the last 6 months or so, where resales are less expensive. Resales are the better value from a number of standpoints. I mean, you're not going to get that new off-gassing new construction smell, right? But that's what I believe. So let me know your thoughts down below. Like I said, if you want to work, if you're not currently working with a realtor or a real estate agent, I can refer you to one. I cannot refer you to VLS because they don't do that, but I can refer you to an MLS realtor. And like I said, that's going to be something that you're going to want to have. You're going to want to have both agents. So you can reach out to me, my direct mobile 240-205-0417. It's Mike, 55 years young, signing off. I look forward to reading your comments, and I will make all my best attempts to respond to all comments so far on this channel. It's a newer YouTube channel that I've been able to do all that, and I really appreciate all the comments and feedback. And I've learned some things. I've learned lots of things from reading your comments, so I appreciate that. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.